Peniston, Manager of Partnership Programs at the NFCC, and actually Bruce McClary and I together will be hosting your Financial Facts chat for today. We thank you for joining us on Facebook and YouTube. We're very glad to have you with us. If you enjoyed today's show, please go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, share. All of those activities help to demonstrate your support for nonprofit financial education. We always welcome your personal finance questions, and we look forward to answering them. So please don't hesitate to type your questions into the comment box today. Otherwise, you could send us an email. You could post a comment on one of our blog articles. Any of those would be great options for us to get your question and make sure you get an answer. And I am delighted to introduce our guest today, Lisa Frankenberger of our member agency, CCCS of Buffalo. And she is here to answer questions about the credit counseling process. So we're so glad to have you with us, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I'm really looking forward to the questions and the answers, because it's always good to have somebody who has firsthand experience and can share with our audience. So thanks for being here.
Of course.
Well, I think, let's go ahead and get started, right, Bruce? Do you want to go ahead with our first question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, I used to be a counselor long ago, but my memory is a little fuzzy. So you're going to be here to help refresh my memory about what it's like to for a counseling session and for people who experience credit counseling. So why should somebody reach out to get help from a credit counselor? What circumstances should they be facing, and when should they why and when should they reach out?
So there's a lot of reasons to reach out to a credit counselor for sure. I honestly think anybody can really benefit from having a review of their financial situation. I always like the saying that, if possible, you try not to wait to go to the emergency room. You want to have your checkups along the way to ensure your health, and the same applies for your financial health. So while certainly we are here in those crisis situations, we can also be part of the journey of just general financial wellness, checking in. Commonly we do see people who are trying to get a plan in place to address their debt. So whether it be credit cards, personal loans, collection accounts, student loans, those are some of the more common types of debt we see that people are dealing with. But again, some people just want to generally improve their credit score, get a handle on budgeting, and just learn more. A lot of times many of us don't really get a formal education about personal financial management, budgeting, credit, all of that. So we're here to really kind of check all those boxes for folks.
That's great. And I think that clears up a little bit of confusion about, what somebody should be considering when they reach out and when they should reach out. I like your emergency room analogy there.
Yeah, that made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how should someone prepare for a credit counseling session? What might they want to think about in advance?
So depending on, the agency you reach out to, there might be some specific paperwork that you are sent to help you prepare. But generally speaking, we're going to want to look at somebody's income, get an idea of their living expenses, as well as the debt that they have. For someone who's maybe trying to prepare for this, looking back on bank statements or credit card statements can be helpful to see what has been, spent in the past. If you're unsure of those figures, we really do try to pride ourselves at taking a holistic look at somebody's finances. So it is important that we review the entire financial picture so we can look at affordability and everybody's situation is really unique. So we think it's important to try to look at as much as we possibly can so we can develop a game plan that's going to make sense. But we also don't want to make it overwhelming for people. We have plenty of folks who reach out and they're like, I'm really not sure about this, we will help walk you through that process of starting to kind of get things on track and where to go to get the information. So, we never want to create any barriers for people to reach out. Know that, no matter kind of where you're at in your process, we're going to be able to help you out.
And just real quickly, I know Rachel has a question to ask following that, but as a follow-up to that issue, if for somebody who might just be intimidated by the preparation process itself for the session, what advice would you have? Would you say just go ahead and get a session started and talk to a counselor, even if you don't have everything you think you may need, or should people come in after they've pulled together all the items that they're going to need?
I say absolutely call, even if you're not sure of where anything is at, because you got to start somewhere, and sometimes, again, you're just not sure what you need. You don't want to be underprepared. You don't want to be overprepared. So just call us, just reach out, either email, call, speak to somebody at a member agency that can, get you started, get the conversation going. Paperwork and all that stuff can always be, done after the fact. I think the important thing is taking that first step to just start talking about the situation.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So kind of along those lines, when you're thinking about preparing for a credit counseling session, what should people know about the credit counselor, the person that they'll be working with?
Yeah, I mean, I really think the most important thing is you always want to be working with a member agency of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. That really ensures that that person you're talking to and their agency meet the industry's gold standard. They are a nonprofit agency, and they are there to take an individualized look at your situation and help come up with the solution that is best for you. I think one of the main differences with working with a nonprofit and a for-profit is, at the nonprofit, we're really there for you. We're not trying to push anybody into any certain thing to make money or to, we're really there to give the guidance. And, I really think that the wonderful, members that we have is part of why we've been around for so long. And, we have a good reputation is because nobody wants to feel like they're being sold something or pressured or any of that. And none of that is what happens when you speak with someone here.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Those are good points to make, because first of all, knowledge and skill set are important. You want to make sure you're talking to somebody who knows what they're doing and has experience and can give you the best advice. And so what you just talked about being a part of the NFCC and the training and the accreditation, all support the quality of the counseling that's provided by the counselor. They have to be certified, they're trained, they go through a process where you're assured that you're going to be getting the best advice from somebody who's knowledgeable and experienced. That's very important.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask the next question.
Go right ahead, Bruce.
But all of that, we've talked about all the preparation that goes into this. We've talked about all the advice and the information that is given to people as a result of the counseling session. So somebody might ask, well, good grief, it sounds like a lot's packed into this. How much of a time commitment is this counseling session going to be?
It's probably not as much as people think. I would say on average, a session maybe takes about an hour. Some situations, those conversations may be shorter. Of course, in some situations, they may be longer. Again, we really try to individualize our approach, so there are some people that it's a very straightforward situation, maybe on the simpler end, and again, the conversation may be more brief, but for other people, there may be a lot of moving pieces. Maybe somebody has, they have some credit card debt, they might have some student loans, there may be some mortgage, there could be a more lengthy conversation, but the point is that, in that initial conversation, just starting somewhere, you get an idea. Could there be follow-up? May we need to schedule another session, or can we kind of wrap it up in one thing? We want to just always really kind of give people what they need, and if somebody needs more time or needs a follow-up because they need to discuss things, say, with family members, before they, or they need to gather more information, we're always very flexible in giving people the time they need.
Well, and it's also about how that time is portioned too, because I just remember back to my days as a counselor, typically the thing that they start out with, the clients that come to you for help start out with, is presenting their most urgent issue, if especially in a situation of financial crisis. But it's fascinating to me when I think of where things are with counseling, how much is accomplished, because it really is, as you mentioned, it's a comprehensive look at your entire financial situation. And that includes addressing the urgent issues, as well as taking a detailed look at where you are with your income and your other expenses, and making recommendations. So that's a lot that gets packed into an hour.
It is for sure. But again, we always like to let people know we're available, whether it even just be a follow-up phone call or a follow-up email. I know I have folks reach out to me all the time, and, sometimes you met with them a while ago, it might have been last year or something. And, just to kind of touch base on where they're at. And we're always available for that as well.
That's terrific. That's great.
Yeah, I think that flexibility is what makes credit counseling so unique and really tailored to the customer needs. So moving on to somewhat of a different topic, the DMP, otherwise known as the Debt Management Plan. This is something that we talk about a lot, but I think people may not know what it is. So Lisa, could you help explain what it is? What is a DMP, first of all, and what are alternative options that might come out of a counseling session?
Sure. So a debt management plan is basically a systematic way to repay your unsecured debt. So credit cards, personal loans, medical bills, collection accounts in 5 years or less. And we accomplish this by working with the creditors to lower interest rates, stop fees, and in many cases, lowering the minimum monthly payment as well. And this just altogether makes debt repayment more affordable. Your debts are paid in full, which is a huge deal to be able to accomplish that within a couple years, rather than feeling like, you look at your credit card statement and you see it's going to take 27 years to, repay your debt if you're only making the minimum payment. And one monthly payment would be made to the agency that we then distribute those funds out on a monthly basis. So again, your creditors are getting paid every month and ultimately getting paid in full. But as you mentioned, what are some other outcomes of a counseling session? It's not always a one size fits all, and that again comes back to the individualized approach. What is going to be best for somebody? We present all options, that could be beneficial, and sometimes people do have multiple avenues that they could take to get to where they want to be ultimately, to get out of debt or whatever the goal is. So another outcome could be speaking to a lender about a loan, different types of loans. It could be speaking to a bankruptcy attorney, to explore legal options. It could be even just finding a more systematic way to self-manage payments, and kind of having a specific plan in place to do that. A lot of times, what people are lacking is just a plan, and it's not knowing where to start, what to do. And that is what we really try to provide people. We provide all of our clients with an action plan, and that really helps you get going, helps you feel that you are now in control of your financial situation, rather than feeling like it's controlling you.
That feeling of not knowing where to start or not having a plan is very familiar to me. So it's so good to know where to turn when you get that feeling, especially when it comes to finance, where it can be so overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah, it's good to have that reassurance and that clarity. And the other thing is, though, too, I mean, we talked about the different options, and you talked about the debt management plan. And for people who go into a debt management plan, that typically means that they're going to be on the plan for an average of, I think I'm right with this, about 4 years or maybe a little bit more to fully repay the debt that's enrolled in the program, which I think is terrific. Again, given the prospect that they could have been locked into repaying this debt for decades, depending on the interest rates and the late fees, et cetera. But a lot can happen in 4 or 5 years in somebody's life. They can relocate, they can get a new job, things can go great, or they can go the other direction. So what happens if somebody misses a payment or something goes off track with their debt management plan? Or is that the end of the line, or is it possible to keep them on track?
Yeah, and I think that's another big sort of good feature of working with an NFCC member agency is that you have support during the process. So we're always there because, as you mentioned, over several years, things can change a lot in somebody's situation, and we sort of anticipate that. So not only do we follow up actively with our clients, periodically throughout the time that they're on a plan, just to kind of check in, make sure things are good, see if anybody needs anything. Our counselors, we're always here to support. So, let's say your financial situation does change and you need to work on a new budget plan. We're available to help you do that, so you can hopefully stay on track. Or, even worst case scenario, say something happens financially where you have to stop making payments for a period of time. If ever, unfortunately, you had to stop the plan for a period of time, we're always here to try to get you set back up if that's what makes sense, and your situation resolves, because sometimes we're just in little temporary situations as well. So we really, again, just like in the beginning, how we take that individualized approach to helping you, we do that throughout the plan as well.
And that's another one of the things that sets nonprofit credit counseling apart from other solutions, because I'm thinking of some other options that people may choose that are not as that don't have as high a touch point between the resources available and the consumer in need. So there's always that opportunity to go back to the counselor and get advice and check in throughout the course of debt repayment on a debt management plan, which I think is tremendous, because to the whole point of that question, there so much can happen in your life that you don't expect, that's not planned, and so that can cause things to go a little bit off track if you don't get on top of those. So the counselor's there to help you in whatever way they can at times like that, so which is fantastic. I think that's a great resource for credit counseling to provide.
Absolutely. And I think that, to that point, sometimes starting on a debt management plan is really kind of the first step somebody's taking in their journey to financial wellness. So you figure your things are going to be changing and you're going to be growing throughout that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe your first step is you're going to take care of some credit card debt, but maybe your next step in your process is you want to tackle your student loan debt. You want to talk about getting ready to buy a home. Those are all things that services that many of our agencies offer to help you with those things as well.
Yeah. And before we get to the last question that we have on the list, I do see that we have a question that was submitted by somebody on Facebook. So thank you, Rodney, for submitting the question. And I'll just read it out loud. If I put it on the screen, it'll block us all. We're scrunched together. So sorry about that. But yeah, Rodney is asking, are you finding that some creditors are trying to help more due to the pandemic?
I think so. I think especially probably really last year, when everything sort of started, we did see a lot of creditors offering some temporary relief to folks, the ability to even sometimes kind of skip or defer a payment for a while, maybe some temporary programs to reduce interest rates. So the good news is, yes, I'd say, we have seen creditors willing to help people out, but I think the trouble sometimes is that sometimes that assistance is temporary. So depending on your situation, you may need something that is in place a little more long term. And that's really, I think, where that management plan can come into place, because it is sort of a solidified, solid thing to completely, get the debt paid off.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because at some time in the future, if it hasn't already happened with some creditors, those special programs that were brought to market in response to COVID to address temporary hardships might go away. And even if they continue and somebody's circumstances are more than just a short-term problem, what you just said is really important, that nonprofit credit counseling and the options they offer, including debt management plans, are able to help people in those circumstances where short-term problems look like they might stick around a little bit longer.
Thanks for that, Lisa. My final question here is about cost. What are the costs involved, if any, in a credit counseling session?
Sure. So there can be a cost associated with it. Some agencies may offer free initial appointments or charge a small fee for an appointment, but typically it's pretty low. To be very honest with you, oftentimes people are kind of surprised at how little services cost. If somebody enrolls in a debt management plan, there is typically a monthly fee for service that you pay as part of your payment to the agency. And in my experience, the thousands of dollars that you save in interest through a DMP and the years of repayment time that you save almost always outweighs the cost associated with that fee of the DMP to the agency. So I think that is really part of why it's so important to work with a nonprofit agency, so that the cost is reasonable to you, especially when you're in a situation where your focus is repaying your debt. You want most of your money to go towards that purpose, and not in paying exorbitant fees to a for-profit.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the issue about the overall savings offsetting any cost of the monthly maintenance fees and any possible account activation fee that might also be included. And I would always use this as an example. One single over limit fee or late fee can equal about $25 or more per month. And if you've got 4 or 5 or 6 accounts where you're getting hit with that, automatically you're going to be saving when those fees stop after the acceptance of those accounts into a debt management program, when the accounts are re-aged or accepted onto the program. And then additive to that is the reduction of interest, the overall reduction of interest, and the likelihood that your payments are going to be reduced as well on a monthly basis. So all of that, just automatically offsets any monthly maintenance fees. That's important to point out there.
Absolutely. And oftentimes somebody's payment through a debt management plan, even with whatever, small fee is attached, is still less than, what they're paying currently, with the added benefit of, as you said, saving all that interest, all that time. And I mean, it's almost always in the thousands of dollars. It's really like we kind of mentioned earlier, you look at your credit card statement and they tell you how long it'll take you if you only make the minimum. And when you think of all the time you can save, if you can get it gone that much sooner.
Yeah, and I got a surprise question to throw in here, because there's always something that comes up, and it used to come up when I would interact with my clients, because as people move through the debt management plan, there's some exciting stuff that happens. Chiefly, some of the accounts get paid off and they're moving on beyond those accounts as they move towards the end of the debt management plan. So how do you manage that situation? Because you have a set amount people pay monthly on a debt management plan. It's based on all the accounts enrolled at the beginning. But what do you advise clients in the circumstance where they might come back and say, can I reduce my DMP payment and just focus on the remaining accounts? But yet there's this extra money that they could apply to those accounts after one account pays off. What do you advise people there?
Yeah, so it's part of the beauty in how a debt management plan works is how we allocate, the payments in those situations. So as maybe some smaller balance accounts are paid off, we start taking that money and applying it to the larger balances and the other remaining accounts on the plan. So we sort of snowball the payments in that way. And that's how you can get paid off in such a short period of time. Because we get asked all the time, so wait a minute, if you're lowering my payment by this much, how am I getting paid off so much faster? And of course the reduction in interest is one of the main components of that, but the other part of it is how we are systematically applying those payments to get you out of debt more quickly.
Yeah, I love that because it clarifies something that not a lot of people are aware of, that you can sort of utilize the advantage of the interest rate reduction and the fee reduction and couple it with sort of a snowball approach to paying off debt in a debt management plan to get you to the finish line for all of your accounts in a way that saves you the most money.
Well, and also having us do that work for you. You know what I mean? It's not something that you have to figure out, okay, where should this money go now? That's all part of the service of the debt management plan, is that, we're kind of doing all that calculating for you. So you just really kind of got to worry, get that payment in each month, and we tackle the rest.
And while people are on the program, people still have access to their account information so they can see their monthly statements from their creditors, right, and see the progress.
That is huge. You can actually see what's happening. So you're going to see the payments being credited to your account every month. You're going to see those interest reductions, the stopping of fees, and you see your progress, and I think that that's a big thing that helps keep you motivated. Because sometimes committing to something for 4 years, is kind of scary for folks. But as you go through, be able to see accounts getting paid down, getting paid off, that is huge to keep you motivated and know that you are on the right track.
Yeah, and it's that level of transparency where people can actually see their credit card statements and show the progress of the account of the debt management plan making a difference on their accounts, is very different, because there are some options out there, and I'm not going to name names, but there are other alternatives people have apart from credit counseling, where they are advised not to contact their creditors, not to look at their statements, and they're walled off from any transparency, which puts them at greater risk because things could be, things might not be working out as intended, and they could be getting worse. But with non-private credit counseling, that's not what happens. We make sure that there is transparency so that people do have access to their account information from their creditors. They can see the progress the program is making. And if they ever have any questions, not only can they get in touch with their counselor, but they still have access. They can, if they want, they can go online, they can go to the creditor website, and they can ask questions. So there's that level of clarity and transparency that I think ensures and protects people from harm.
Absolutely. And if you think about, really, it's your money, you want to know where it's going, what it's doing, and seeing all of that. And we always say to people, we're not getting power of attorney over your accounts. You are still in control. You are still, the person who, is really in the driver's seat with this. And I think that's so important.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Very important. Very important. Well, I'm sorry, that's all the follow-up surprise questions I had.
No, that was great. I'm so glad we got to cover that in such detail. That is really all of our questions. Lisa, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd want people to know I'll just give you a moment to speak to that if there's any messages you wanted to share.
Yeah, sure. I think the really biggest thing is if you are overwhelmed or feel as if you're struggling or just feel like you don't you're not sure on what information is correct or not correct with your finances, reach out to a nonprofit credit counselor. I mean, that is exactly what we're here for. There's no judgment. There's no any of that. This is why we're here. We're all here doing these jobs because we want to educate and help people. And you say if you had a plumbing problem, you call a plumber, but I don't know how to fix a leaky pipe, but you would call a plumber, you'd call a professional. And it's really the same in these circumstances. If you have stuff going on with your finances, with debt, trying to get a good plan in place, seeking advice from a professional is always the best way to go.
And if people want to find out more about your agency, where can they go?
Yes, so consumercreditbuffalo.org, or our 800 number is 800-926-9685.
That's terrific. Thank you so much, Lisa. This has been fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
It's been so nice to talk to you, and thank you for sharing all of this valuable information. I had so much fun, and thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.
So, Rachel, what do we have to close with? Anything else?
I think that's all for today. Just to thank everyone for joining us. If you joined on Facebook or YouTube, we're so glad you did. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out CCCS of Buffalo's website and call that number if you're curious about a credit counseling session. And yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks,
Bye.
Rachel.